She had nothing, not even shoes. But when a shivering dog came near her, she opened her only possession, a rusted tin of broken biscuits, and shared half without hesitation. What she didn't know was someone was filming from the backseat of a Bentley. And that moment, it would change everything. Would you give away your last meal to save someone else? Watch to the end, because this isn't just a story about kindness. It's about what happens when the world finally pays attention. The morning sky hung low with gray clouds, and the streets were wet from the night's rain. People walked quickly, heads down, coats tight, eyes averted from the girl on the curb. Her name was Leela, and she was only 10 years old. Her oversized hoodie dragged on the ground, damp and stained. Her feet were bare, cracked from cold concrete. But cradled in her arms was a small, dented tin. Inside, a few crushed biscuits she'd saved from a kind baker the day before. She sat on the edge of a busy sidewalk in front of a luxury cafe. Glass walls behind her glowed with warm lights. Inside, people laughed, sipped cappuccinos, and typed away on laptops. Outside, she sat like a forgotten shadow. That's when she heard it, a soft whine. A small stray dog, ribs showing, limping, approached her cautiously. Its eyes were just like hers, tired, hungry, and lonely. Leela didn't hesitate. She opened the tin slowly, as if opening treasure, and carefully broke the largest biscuit in half. "No one should eat alone," she whispered, gently placing the piece in front of the dog. The dog wagged its tail weakly and devoured it. And in that exact moment, a tinted window across the street lowered, just a crack. Inside the luxury car sat a man in a custom-tailored suit, tapping impatiently at his phone. His driver had stopped for coffee, and he was annoyed, until he looked up and saw her. His eyes narrowed. He picked up his phone and began recording. No makeup, no filters, just a barefoot girl with nothing, feeding a creature that had even less than her. Something in his chest twisted. He didn't know her name. She didn't know she was being watched. But that moment, just 11 seconds long, was about to reach millions. And not all of them would be kind. The man in the Bentley didn't mean to keep watching. He wasn't the kind to get emotional. Not anymore. His name was Grant Callahan, a venture capitalist known for building companies and breaking hearts. He'd built empires, acquired wealth most only dream of. But lately nothing moved him, not even profit. Yet something about that little girl, barefoot, cold, feeding a dog. It stung. It unsettled him. He stared at the recording on his phone for a moment. No sound, just the quiet humility of a child giving what little she had. "Sir, your coffee," the driver said, handing him the cup. Grant took it without replying. His mind was elsewhere. He watched the clip again, then again, and again. Later that night, in a penthouse surrounded by glass and gold, Grant Callahan sat in silence. He'd posted the video to his private social media account with a single line. "This girl gave away more than I've ever given in my life." He didn't think much of it, but the world did. Within hours, 14,000 shares. #Barefoot Angel started trending. Comments flooded in from all over the world. "Find her. She's the hope we needed. I'd adopt her in a heartbeat." One reply stood out, from a major news outlet. "At Grant Callahan, can we license this clip for broadcast? This girl is exactly what the world needs right now." Meanwhile, Leela slept curled up beside the dog under a bus stop bench. She didn't know millions of people had seen her face. She didn't know someone called her an angel. She didn't know she'd made the entire internet cry. She just knew she was hungry again. And cold. Back in the penthouse, Grant stared at the final comment under the video. "She's out there alone. You have the means to help her, so what will you do?" He sat forward, and for the first time in years, he felt something real. Grant Callahan had built an empire by being ruthless. But for once, he couldn't scroll past. He sat in his dimly lit office. The video paused on his phone. Leela's hand hovered over the dog, the broken biscuit still visible in her palm, frozen in a frame that now had over 6.2 million views. He opened a new tab, typed the words slowly. "How to find a homeless child in the city." Nothing, no real help, just articles, helplines, bureaucracy. So he called in his team. 8 a.m. next morning. "Sir, we have corporate meetings at." "Cancel everything," Grant said. His assistant blinked. "Everything, sir." "Yes, and call a PR team, a private investigator, and get me the head of outreach at the city shelter. I want every department in this city that works with street kids on speed dial. Today." Across town, Leela woke up to the sound of barking. "SHHH," she whispered to the dog. "It's okay, it's just morning." Her fingers were numb again. The tin was empty. She looked at it quietly before tucking it back into her hoodie pocket. "Let's try the bakery again," she whispered to the dog. "Maybe they'll have crumbs." She didn't know her face was now plastered across news feeds, headlines, and TV screens. She didn't know people were searching for her. She just knew the day had begun, and she had to survive it. Later that day, inside a high-rise conference room, "We've narrowed it down to a 6-block radius," the investigator said, pointing at the map. "She's been spotted sleeping here, behind a bus stop, and another sighting 2 days ago outside Finch Cafe." "Then we start there," Grant said. "You want us to alert the authorities?" someone asked. "No," Grant said firmly. "No uniforms. No cameras." We approach her gently. Carefully, she's been let down too many times. He looked out the window over the vast city. She gave her last biscuit to a dog. He said softly, "I think she's earned someone showing up for her." That night, Grant put on a plain hoodie, stepped into the rain, and walked the streets for hours. He didn't send a driver. He didn't carry cash. He only carried a photo of her from the video. He didn't want to rescue her. He wanted to meet her. The rain came quietly that night, almost like it was ashamed to fall. Most people hurried past it, but Grant Callahan walked slowly, hoodie pulled over his head, shoes soaked, holding a folded paper in one hand. A screenshot of her, the girl with the biscuits, the dog, the broken sidewalk. He'd passed that same corner 3 times now. Nothing. "Maybe she moved on," his driver had said. But Grant shook his head. "People don't move on," he whispered. "They're moved along by hunger, fear, weather, survival." He paused outside a convenience store. A clerk swept broken glass near the back alley. "You looking for someone?" he asked, eyeing Grant suspiciously. Grant showed the photo. The man squinted. "Yeah, I seen her. Fed a mutt back there yesterday. Thought she was an angel or something. The dog follows her like he's in love." "Where'd she go?" "Dunno, try the church over on 3rd. They sometimes give out soup on Thursdays." Meanwhile, Leela sat on a milk crate near the back door of a diner. The dog, now affectionately named Biscuit, curled beside her. She held a napkin-wrapped heel of bread someone had tossed out. It was damp, but she didn't complain. "People say God watches," she whispered to the dog, "but I think he just blinks a lot." She smiled faintly at her own joke, then tore the bread in half. "Still too much for me alone." Back to Grant. The church was dark. Soup day was canceled. He rubbed his temples, frustration rising. Then he heard it. A bark. Not loud, not aggressive, just distinct. He turned. Across the street, under the glow of a flickering street lamp, was a girl on a crate feeding a mutt. For a moment, he couldn't move. There she was, not framed by a phone screen, but real, alive, smaller than he imagined. She looked up, sensing his presence. Her eyes narrowed. She clutched the dog protectively. Grant raised his hands slowly. "It's okay," he said gently. "I'm not here to hurt you." She didn't speak, but she didn't run. He took a step forward. "I saw what you did with the biscuits." Still silence. He smiled softly. "It was the bravest thing I've ever seen." The dog growled. Leela finally spoke, her voice barely a whisper. "Are you one of those people who comes to take things?" Grant knelt down, eye level with her. "No," he said. "I came because the world gave you nothing, and you still gave." She looked into his eyes for a long time. And then, for the first time in months, Leela said something she hadn't dared to ask anyone. "Are you going to leave like everyone else?" The words hit Grant harder than he expected. For a man who once negotiated billion-dollar deals without blinking, he suddenly didn't know what to say. The girl in front of him wasn't begging. She wasn't broken. She was just tired of being temporary. Grant sat down on the cold sidewalk, ignoring the rain seeping into his clothes. "I don't want to leave," he said, "but I won't lie to you. I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to fix this overnight." Leela didn't respond. Biscuit sniffed his shoe. She watched silently, unsure if she could believe a man in clean clothes who sat on dirty pavement. "I just know you shouldn't be out here," Grant continued, voice low. "Not someone like you." "Why?" she asked flatly. "Because you gave your last food to a dog. That means you see value in things the world throws away." Leela blinked, her lip trembled, but she wiped her face quickly with her sleeve. "I don't want to go to a shelter," she said. "They separate you, they yell." "I'm not sending you to a shelter," he replied, "but I also won't force you anywhere. You get to choose." She hesitated. Grant reached into his pocket, not for money, but for something wrapped in brown wax paper. He unwrapped it and slid it toward her. A still warm peanut butter sandwich. "No strings," he said, "just food. And maybe a ride somewhere dry." She stared at it for a moment, then looked at him. "You're weird for a rich guy." Grant chuckled. Yeah, I'm starting to realize that. Later that night, inside Grant's car, Leela sat quietly in the back seat, Biscuit curled at her feet. Grant's driver said nothing. He'd been briefed. They drove past glittering towers, neon lights, and wide windows of restaurants filled with people. Leela kept her eyes down. Where are we going? She finally asked. To a place with blankets, a heater, and no reporters, Grant said. You can rest, think, eat, that's all. You still call the shots. She nodded slowly. I want Biscuit with me. Of course. Then a whisper, and I want to keep the tin. Grant looked at her in the rearview mirror. You keep whatever you want. As the car turned the final corner, Leela finally closed her eyes. Biscuit leaned against her leg. And for the first time in a long time, she didn't dream of running. She dreamed of staying. Leela woke slowly. For a few seconds, she panicked. The ceiling was too white, the air too warm, the blanket too soft. She sat up fast, heart racing, arms flinching to protect Biscuit. But then she saw him, sleeping peacefully at the foot of the bed, curled up like he belonged. The window nearby glowed with soft morning light. She wasn't in an alley. She wasn't under a bridge. She was in a room with no locks, no shouting voices, and no cold. The guest wing. There was a knock, gentle, not loud, not demanding. Leela stayed quiet. A voice came through the door. It's just me, I brought pancakes. She waited. The door didn't open, he didn't force it. She opened it herself 5 minutes later. There stood Grant, wearing a plain gray sweater, holding a tray with pancakes, juice, and a small bowl for Biscuit. Still no strings, he said, just breakfast. Later that morning, Leela sat by the fireplace in Grant's oversized living room, sipping orange juice like it was a miracle. Biscuit gnawed on a piece of bacon nearby. Grant sat across from her, careful not to hover. Where were your parents? He asked gently. She shrugged, gone. Foster homes. She nodded, 6 of them, some bad, some worse. And the streets. She looked away. Better than pretending to be invisible in a house. Grant didn't press, he just nodded. Then he pulled out a box. Inside was her biscuit tin, polished clean. I had someone fix it, I hope that's okay. Leela gasped and ran her fingers over it. You didn't throw it away. I wouldn't dare. She held it close to her chest. It's the only thing I kept when I left the last home. Why? Because it reminded me I still had something to give. That afternoon, Leela explored the guest house. It had books, soft rugs, a view of the city skyline. She found a small painting on the wall of a girl and a dog under a street lamp. She stared at it for a long time. I didn't paint it, Grant said, walking in, but when I saw it at an art fair, it reminded me of you. It is me, she whispered. She turned to him. Is this a real home? Grant smiled, not with his mouth, but with his whole expression. It's not mine anymore if you want it to be yours. Leela was beginning to smile again. Not big ones, just small, uncertain ones that flickered when she laughed at Biscuit's clumsy hops, or when Grant brought her a new book with sticky notes labeled My Favorite Chapter. She still didn't say much, but her silence felt less like fear and more like peace. But outside those walls, the world was roaring. The video hadn't just gone viral, it had ignited something. News anchors debated it on morning shows. A billionaire finds a barefoot angel. Will he adopt her? Is this kindness or a publicity stunt? Paparazzi circled Grant's building like hawks. Comment sections flared with praise, but also judgment. Where was he before this? Is she just a project to fix his image? Let the girl speak. She has a story, too. Inside the mansion, Grant paced, phone in hand. I didn't do this for likes, he growled at his PR team. Shut it all down. Sir, it's too late, his assistant said. Nervous, they've tracked her face. People know she's here. He turned sharply. Then they'll know one more thing, I don't care what they think. Later that night, Leela heard it first. The sound of helicopters above. Camera flashes bouncing off the windows. She peeked through the curtains. Reporters stood outside with signs. The barefoot girl. Show her story. Is this the modern Cinderella? Her face paled. She backed away from the window. Grant found her sitting in the hallway, hugging Biscuit. I thought it was safe here, she whispered. It is, he said. I'm going to protect you. But how long until they ruin this too? She asked. She looked up at him with tear-filled eyes. Please don't let them make me a story before I get to be a girl again. Grant nodded, and the next morning he made a call that shocked the world. Tell the media she's gone. Let them believe it. Because sometimes, to give a child a future, you have to let the world forget her past. Grant had spent years mastering media. He knew how to flood headlines. Now, for the first time, he was learning how to erase one. That morning, just before sunrise, He met with Leela in the kitchen. Two backpacks sat on the counter, one small, one large. Inside, clothes, snacks, a notebook, and the biscuit tin. Biscuit sat by the door, sensing the change. The escape plan. Grant handed Leela a baseball cap and a hoodie 2 sizes too big. No more news cameras, he whispered. Just a weekend drive. She looked up. Are we hiding? No, he said. We're healing. They slipped out through a back entrance and into an unmarked SUV. His assistant took a different route with decoys to distract the press. Within minutes, the mansion was surrounded, but empty. The media frenzy reached a new level. Breaking, billionaire and girl vanish. Child protection agencies raise questions. Where is she? But Leela didn't see any of that, because by then, she was watching a pine forest blur past her window, head resting on Biscuit's back. For the first time, not worrying about tomorrow. A house by the lake. They arrived at an old cabin Grant hadn't visited in over 12 years. His mother had left it to him, the only place in the world that felt untouched by headlines. Leela stepped inside and blinked. Wooden floors, soft rugs, a fireplace, a loft bedroom, and books, hundreds of them. She turned to him, stunned. This place is quiet. That's why I came here when I didn't know who I was anymore. You felt that too? She asked. He nodded. I still do sometimes. That night by the fire, Leela wrote something in her notebook and quietly handed it to him. A single line. I don't want to be famous. I just want to belong somewhere. Grant looked at the words for a long time. Then he added his own beneath hers. Then we start here, not as a story, but as people who needed each other. Outside, the lake reflected the stars. Inside, a girl and her dog finally slept without fear. And somewhere deep inside Grant, a boy who never had a childhood finally exhaled. Grant thought the hardest part would be finding Leela. But he was wrong. The hardest part was letting her stay, letting her into a home that had never really been one, letting her questions touch the bruises he had long since buried. At the lake cabin 1 week later, Leela was settling in gently, like snow on a quiet roof. She now brushed her teeth without being reminded. She folded her own laundry. She even asked if Biscuit could have a pillow too. Grant said yes, then bought him 3. But she still flinched when doors shut too hard. Still paused before speaking, like words had gotten her punished before. And every night before bed, she'd whisper, Are you sure I can stay tomorrow too? One rainy afternoon, Leela found an old photo in a drawer. A young boy, maybe 9, with wild hair and hollow eyes, sitting on a dock. She brought it to Grant. Is this your son? Grant stared at the photo. That's me. She blinked. You look lonely. I was. She sat down beside him quietly, then asked something no one ever had. Who took care of you when you were small? The truth Grant had never told. My parents died in a car crash when I was 10, he said. I went to live with relatives who didn't want me. I stopped speaking for almost a year. Leela didn't respond with pity. She simply placed the photo on the table and whispered, Then maybe you're the only one who can understand. That night, a letter on the table. Leela left a folded piece of paper for him to find. Inside, written in her uneven but careful handwriting. Dear Mr. Grant, I don't know what a dad is supposed to feel like, but I think it might be you. I won't ask you to be one, but if you want, I'd like to learn what it means together. Leela. Grant stared at the letter for a long time. Then he walked to the fireplace, knelt beside her sleeping form, and whispered, You've already taught me more than anyone ever has. Outside, the rain fell, but inside, something was finally growing. A family neither of them expected, but both finally deserved. Spring came slowly to the lake. Morning by morning, the snow melted into soft soil. And with it, so did the walls around Grant Callahan's heart. On Leela's first birthday, home. She didn't know the date until Grant showed her her birth record, retrieved quietly from child services. You're officially 11, he smiled, holding a small cake lit with a single candle. No one's ever known, she whispered. We do now. Biscuit barked as she blew it out, and for the first time in years, her wish wasn't about surviving. It was about staying. Later that day, Grant handed her a folder. Inside was a document stamped in blue ink. Legal guardianship approval. Her name, his name, a home address. You don't have to call me anything, he said, but you'll never have to wonder where you belong again. Leela didn't cry, not right away, but she nodded, hugged Biscuit, then hugged him, and whispered, Can I call you my forever person? 1 year later, Leela sat at a school desk, doodling quietly. Outside, her story had faded from the headlines. No more paparazzi, no hashtags, no flashbulbs. Just homework, just bike rides by the lake, just a girl and her dog. and a man who finally knew what love without conditions felt like. Back at the cabin, Leela placed the polished biscuit tin on the shelf between two framed photos. One of her and Biscuit, one of her and Grant, laughing by the dock. She looked at the tin and smiled. "This used to be everything I had," she whispered. "Now it's just a reminder." Grant stood beside her, his hand resting gently on her shoulder. "That kindness saved me too." She gave away the only food she had, not knowing the world would watch. But it wasn't the video that changed everything. It was the moment someone finally looked closer and saw a child worth everything. If you believe kindness still matters, share her story.